one of the largest organized retail theft rings in state history. The people involved went after a lot of places like CVS, Target, and Walgreens. The lead defendant, Danny Drago, will be sentenced in the near future. He is looking at least 6 years in prison.
4:37 a.m., Minneapolis, Minnesota. The temperature hovered at 8 degrees below zero. Ice crystals formed on the windows of unmarked federal vehicles parked along Cedar Avenue. Inside those vehicles sat 41 agents from the FBI, IC, and the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General. They had spent 22 months building this case. They had traced financial networks across 6 continents. They had followed digital breadcrumbs through encrypted servers in Mogadishu, Dubai, London, and Toronto. And now, in the frozen darkness of a Minneapolis neighborhood, they were about to dismantle a $5 billion fraud empire that had turned America's child care system into a cartel money laundering operation. The target was a building on the 3100 block of Pillsbury Avenue. State records identified it as the Bright Futures Early Learning Center, a licensed daycare facility serving vulnerable families. According to enrollment data maintained by Minnesota's Department of Human Services, this single location cared for 412 children daily. Federal and state subsidies had deposited $78 million into its accounts over 18 months. But when agents breached the entrance at 4:44 a.m., they found something else entirely. No children, no staff, no life. The building was immaculate. Plastic chairs arranged in perfect rows, educational posters on walls that had never been touched, a reception desk holding intake forms filled with careful handwriting. Each form documented a child who had never existed. Each signature belonged to a parent who was never real. The lead agent walked through empty classrooms, cribs with factory-wrapped mattresses, toy bins overflowing with items still sealed in packaging. A chalkboard displayed the alphabet in bright colors. The chalk had never been used. Dust sat undisturbed on every surface. This wasn't neglect. This was theater. If you want the full truth about what federal agents found inside, hit like so this story reaches more people who need to know. In the back office, investigators discovered the command center. Filing cabinets contained dossiers on more than 1,100 fabricated children. Social security numbers, birth certificates, immunization records, parent signatures. Every document was fake. The social security numbers had been purchased from identity brokers operating on dark web marketplaces for an average of $40 each. The birth certificates had been manufactured using templates stolen from county clerk offices in 4 different states. The signatures had been generated by machine learning algorithms trained to replicate human handwriting with statistical variation. This wasn't amateur hour. This was industrial-scale identity synthesis operated with corporate precision. But the real shock waited behind a reinforced steel door in the director's private office. When forensic technicians cut through the lock, they found $53 million in cash, bundled in vacuum-sealed bags, stacked floor to ceiling. Sitting on top of the money were 4 encrypted satellite phones, a leather-bound ledger written entirely in code, and a single photograph that changed everything. The photo showed the facility's director standing beside a man whose face triggered immediate recognition in federal databases. That man was Rodrigo Mendez Valencia, a senior logistics coordinator for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most violent and sophisticated drug trafficking organizations in the Western Hemisphere. His network moved fentanyl, cocaine, and methamphetamine across North America. His operations generated billions annually. His organization had been responsible for the deaths of thousands, and now federal agents understood what they were looking at. This wasn't welfare fraud. This wasn't bureaucratic exploitation. This was a CJNG cartel money laundering terminal embedded directly into the American social safety net, funded by taxpayer dollars, operated under the protection of state licensing, hidden behind the facade of helping children. The director of Bright Futures Early Learning Center was a 48-year-old woman named Halima Osman Warfa. State records showed she had operated child care facilities in Minneapolis for 14 years. She served on nonprofit boards. She had been photographed with state senators at community events. She had received awards from the mayor's office for contributions to early childhood education. None of it was real. Halima Osman Warfa was a constructed identity, created 9 years earlier using documents purchased from a forger operating in Nairobi. The woman behind the name had entered the United States on a tourist visa in 2015. She never left. She had no formal education, no background in child development, no legitimate credentials. What she had was a relationship with people who understood how to exploit gaps in American oversight, and a direct line to CJNG cartel financial operations. By 11 a.m., federal analysts had begun tracing the money flows. What they discovered was a financial labyrinth spanning 47 countries. Funds deposited into daycare accounts were immediately transferred to shell companies registered in Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada, states with minimal corporate transparency requirements, states where anyone could register a company with almost no questions asked. From there, the the money moved to intermediary accounts in the Cayman Islands, then to the United Arab Emirates, then to Kenya. The final destination was a network of accounts controlled by CJNG cartel-affiliated entities in Jalisco, Mexico. The operation had a code name buried in encrypted files, Project Lighthouse. The name was darkly ironic. This network had been designed to guide billions through darkness, away from legitimate recipients, away from children who needed care, straight into the hands of cartel leadership. The scale was staggering. Between 2019 and 2025, Project Lighthouse had processed more than $5 billion in fraudulent child care subsidies. The network operated across 73 facilities in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, Arizona, and Michigan. The money had funded cartel operations across 2 continents. It had purchased precursor chemicals for fentanyl production in Sinaloa. It had bribed port officials in Long Beach, Houston, and Baltimore. It had financed the construction of drug tunnels beneath the Arizona border. It had paid for encrypted communication systems. It had funded weapons purchases. It had paid off law enforcement officers across multiple states. Comment exposed below if you believe this level of
expediting license approval. Payments ranging from $15,000 to $120,000 per approval. 8 county inspectors had accepted bribes to overlook obvious signs of fraud during facility visits. Bribes totaling more than $2.3 million over 4 years. 4 state legislators had received campaign contributions from shell companies linked to the CG&G cartel network. Contributions had become a weapon pointed at the people it was meant to protect. At 10 p.m., federal prosecutors announced that charges would be filed against 231 individuals. The charges range from wire fraud and money laundering to drug trafficking, human trafficking, and material support for terrorism. Gerald Thorson faced a potential sentence of life in prison without parole. Halima Osman Warfa remained at large, believed to have fled the country through a network of cartel-controlled transit points. An international arrest warrant had been issued through Interpol. If you believe justice must reach every level of this conspiracy, comment justice below. The facilities are closed now. The drug super lab has been demolished. The servers have been seized. The money has been frozen in accounts across 14 countries. But the damage cannot be undone. The children who lost access to legitimate childcare because funds were diverted to fraud cannot get those years back. The families destroyed by fentanyl and cocaine cannot be made whole. The 16,000 people killed by narcotics produced with stolen money cannot be brought back to life. The communities devastated by cartel violence cannot rebuild trust overnight. The trust that communities placed in institutions designed to help them has been shattered. This case forces a reckoning with vulnerabilities embedded in American social programs. For decades, the priority has been accessibility, getting money to people quickly, with minimal barriers. That compassion was weaponized by the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The cartel understood that bureaucracies are afraid to ask hard questions. They understood that efficiency often means reduced verification. They understood that political correctness could be exploited to avoid scrutiny. They built a $5 billion drug empire on the cartel members in Mexico. The drug fortress in Rochester has been destroyed. Tons of narcotics have been seized. The network has been dismantled. Gerald Thorson sits in a federal detention facility awaiting trial. But the question echoes across every state in America. How many other facilities are operating right now, collecting millions while children go without? How many other systems have been colonized by drug cartels? How many other Gerald Thorsons are sitting in state offices right now, signing approvals, collecting payments, authorizing transfers that fund fentanyl production, betraying the public trust? Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next as this investigation continues to expand. This story is a warning that power does not always require violence. Sometimes it only requires patience. Sometimes it only requires finding the gaps in systems built on trust and exploiting them until there is nothing left but a drug empire operating inside America's child care. The CJ&G cartel did not need to invade America with army. They simply needed to fill out the right form, to smile at the right meetings, to make the right campaign contribution, to pay the right official, to recruit the right daycare director. They turned compassion into corruption. They turned childcare into cartel funding. They turned migrant communities into recruitment. They turned the American dream into a money laundering nightmare that produced tons of drugs and destroyed thousands of lives. Federal investigators continue to trace additional connections across the country. They believe Project Lighthouse may have extended into at least 6 more states. They believe the total financial damage may exceed $7 billion. They believe dozens of additional public officials may have been compromised by cartel money. The threat is not always visible. The enemy does not always wear a uniform. Sometimes the enemy wears a suit and sits in a government office authorizing payments to Ghost Daycare. Sometimes the enemy operates a facility that never cared for a single child but processed millions for the CJ&G cartel. Sometimes the enemy hides behind good intentions while funneling billions to drug production, human trafficking, and terrorist networks. If you believe we need a complete audit of every social program in America, comment audit below and share this video before it gets buried. The Minnesota Department of Human Services had been conducting compliance reviews using protocols developed in 2000. They were checking for paperwork accuracy. Meanwhile, the cartel was using artificial intelligence developed in 2024 to generate that paperwork with perfect authenticity. Machine learning created realistic attendance patterns. Natural language processing generated parent communication. Deepfake technology produced video tours of facilities that were empty warehouses. The government was bringing a pencil to a cyber war waged by a sophisticated drug cartel with unlimited resources. Among the most disturbing discoveries was evidence that Project Lighthouse had been recruiting individuals from within refugee communities. The CG&G cartel specifically targeted Somali immigrants in Minneapolis. Many had arrived seeking safety, seeking opportunity, seeking the American promise of a better life. Instead, they found predators wearing badges and carrying cartel money. Cartel recruiters approached vulnerable individuals with offers of employment, of income that could support entire families, of security in an uncertain world. Those who accepted found themselves trapped in a criminal enterprise they couldn't escape. Those who refused faced threats against themselves, against their families, against relatives still living in East Africa where the cartel maintained connection. The cartel had weaponized the immigrant experience. They had turned desperation into leverage. They had exploited the very vulnerabilities that American refugee programs were designed to protect against. They had converted social services into cartel infrastructure. Federal agents interviewed 47 individuals who had been coerced into participating in various aspects of the fraud network. Their stories revealed systematic manipulation, threats of deportation, threats of violence, promises of legal immigration status that never materialized, debt bondage schemes that kept them working for the network even after they wanted out. One woman described how she had been told her job was simply to sign paperwork. She thought she was helping process legitimate applications for real children. She didn't realize until months later that she was signing enrollment forms for children who didn't exist, that her signature was being used to steal money that funded fentanyl production. By then, she had been told that she was already implicated, that if she went to authorities, she would be arrested alongside everyone else, that her own children would be taken from her. She stayed silent for 3 years, living with guilt, living with fear, living with the knowledge that her signature was being used to steal millions that funded a drug empire responsible for thousands of deaths. If this makes you angry about how cartels exploit vulnerable communities, hit like and comment your reaction below. The factories are dismantled. The drug super lab is destroyed. The servers are seized. Gerald Thorson awaits trial. But questions remain that cannot be answered with raids and arrests alone. How did this CG&G cartel network operate for 6 years without detection? How did 73 facilities receive licensing approval despite operating as obvious frauds? How did billions flow through the banking system, funding cocaine and fentanyl production without triggering meaningful investigation? The answer lies in systematic failure across multiple layers of oversight. State licensing agencies were understaffed and overwhelmed. Minnesota employed 47 inspectors to monitor more than 11,000 child care facilities across the state. Each inspector was responsible for reviewing more than 200 facilities annually. Site visits lasted an average of 90 minutes. Inspectors checked for basic safety compliance. They verified paperwork generated by cartel AI systems. They rarely investigated deeper. Federal banking regulations required reports for individual transactions exceeding $10,000, but they did. red notices for 47 individuals believed to be involved in Project Lighthouse operations coordinating with the CJ&G cartel. Financial institutions have frozen more than $3 billion in assets tied to the drug empire network.
But Halima Osman Warfa remains at large, the daycare director who helped build a $5 billion fraud machine. Last confirmed sighting placed her in Nairobi 3 days after the initial Minneapolis raids. Intelligence suggests she may have fled to the Middle East with cartel protection. She has resources, she has connections, she has every incentive to disappear. Whether she will ever face justice for her role in funding a drug empire that killed thousands remains an open question. What is certain is that the systems she and the CJ&G cartel exploited remain vulnerable, that other networks may be operating right now, that the lessons of Project Lighthouse must drive fundamental reform in how America manages social programs. Hit like if you believe justice is worth fighting for. Comment below with your thoughts on what should happen to every cartel member and corrupt official involved in this conspiracy. Subscribe so you don't miss updates as this case develops. Share this story so more communities understand how drug cartels infiltrated the child care system and turned it into a $5 billion money laundering machine. Remember that the threat is not always visible, that enemies do not always announce themselves, that sometimes the greatest danger comes wrapped in bureaucratic forms and community awards and smiling photographs with elected officials while secretly coordinating with Mexican drug cartels to produce tons of fentanyl and cocaine. Stay vigilant, stay informed, demand accountability. This story is not over. The CJ&G cartel network may be dismantled in Minnesota, but Project Lighthouse may have roots in 6 more states. The investigation expands. The fight continues.